And we are going live again. VLynn, how are you?
Hi, Kathleen. Hey, everybody out there. Doing great. Thanks. How are you?
I am pretty darn good, and I'm real excited about the topic we're going to be speaking on today, which is productivity to improve your strategies, your systems, and get you more visible. So, how are you? You've had some amazing
Ooh.
stuff going on. Woohoo, girl. Man.
It's been a week to remember. I'll put it that way. But happy to be here. And I think that's part of what brought this up too. Because, in the life of a vegan entrepreneur, in the life of an entrepreneur, you never know what's going to show up for you, right? And being in a position to handle everything is just an impossible feat. So, how do you create more visibility for yourself, especially when you know that without having a certain level of productivity, you can't focus on visibility?
Right.
It was easy to come here today and say, we've got X, Y, and Z, Q, R, and S, A, B, and C still to do. How do we carve out this time to be as effective, efficient, and productive as we can?
Absolutely.
And I'm going to start off by saying just one of the things is making sure that you're not spread too thin, that you've got one conversation going on, and there's this whole big thing and strategy around the one thing. And I'll tell you a quick story. I remember the day when I was just getting into digital marketing, and I was looking at this piece of it and that piece of it, and it really was quite interesting to me. But what it quickly brought up was there's too many things that could potentially be focused on. So let's pick the one thing that's the most important thing. Let's strategize the messaging and the forward progress in that direction. And so when I look at that, I think about what we've done with Vegan Visibility Productions, and we have done just that. We had our strategy and we culled it down to focus on one thing. And that first thing was creating visibility for ourselves, which is why these live streams are so important. Would you agree?
I absolutely agree. And as you were sharing, what came up for me is SOP, standard operating procedures, because as you grow a business, and even if you're not growing a business, if you're just maintaining, you still have to have standard operating procedures. But for us, as we are growing our business, it's important for us to have systems in place so that when we bring on team members, that they can hit the ground running and that they understand fully there's a reason why we have these systems in place. Because when you're working with a number of different people, different personalities, different cultures, it can be interesting, the dialogues that you have. And if you have things written down, if you have things organized in a way where you can give somebody the SOP and say, this is how we do it, and to explain why, because it's not just a matter of do what I say, but it's really about here's why we do it that way. We've been doing this for a long time and we know where the glitches are, so we want to work through that. Also, another thing about productivity is being willing to listen to your team members, because we have several team members right now, and they often will give us ideas. They'll say, well, have you considered doing it this way? And if it makes sense, we're willing to try it. If we've tried it and it really doesn't fit, we can explain to them, well, we did try that once, maybe we'll try it again. But I think it's really important for people to step back and look at, where do you have your energy leaks and your time leaks, and to know when to say no, because it's really tempting to take on every little thing that comes along. And VLynn, you and I, we go through this all the time, where we have to say, is that really a good use of our time? Or would that be better delegated to one of the team members, or let go altogether?
Or there's one other option as well,
okay,
if I may, and that is there another way to do it? right? Because the way you're doing it, the way that it's suggested to be done, may not really be as efficient and effective as you'd like. Is there yet another way to do it? And I love how you put that, because I think as entrepreneurs, that's our job as leaders of the organization, is to think through those different pathways
Right.
in order to get to the best option.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, let's talk about a few systems that people can put in place for productivity that allows them to free up their time so they can get visibility. For example, like what we're doing right now, we have it scheduled in every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. We go live for about 15 to 20 minutes. And it's real tempting as you get busy to say, oh, I just don't have time for that. But part of your visibility, part of your productivity is being consistent in those things that give you the outcomes that you're looking for. And virtually every entrepreneur needs to get visibility in order to grow their business. So, what are some of the productivity tips that you have, VLynn?
Well, besides one thing at a time, and I say one thing at a time, and there's a macro view and a micro view of
Mhm.
that, right? So the macro view is in your strategy, one thing at a time. What are you really driving to? And then on the micro level, it's one thing at a time. And it tends to be a challenge for most entrepreneurs, because we get that phone call, we get that email, and we're just getting up to go for a bio break and come back to the computer. And there's all kinds of things that have happened while we were focused on that one thing. Or we're using the Pomodoro method, and we're just taking that break every 50 minutes, that 10 minutes to do your bio break, get some
Mhm.
water, do some movement, and come back to the project at hand, yet something else has interrupted.
Right. Well, and it's knowing when to not immediately jump into reacting when that something else comes up, because like you're talking about the bio breaks, where those are really important, especially to get up and stretch. You recently had your knee surgery. What was it, a couple of weeks ago?
2 weeks
And part
ago,
of your
today.
2 weeks today, that's right. And part of your recovery is that every hour you need to get up and you need to move around. You have to do that. That's your physical therapy. And to not do that is counterproductive to your healing process. But the whole thing with the one thing at a time, what I like to do, and it works really well for me, is I write a checklist. It's like, okay, these are the
Hmm.
things that I need to do today. And on occasion, there are those days that no matter how focused I want to be, how focused I think I am, it's just upside down and I can't seem to concentrate. And so what I'll do is I'll just take my bio break, take a step back, and then do some deep breathing, regroup, and then look at one thing on my list that I can get done that gives me a sense of accomplishment. That's really important, because if we're always working on projects and we have a lot of loose ends and we never feel like there's any completion or finality to it, then we can continue to keep spinning our wheels. And that's the one thing too in business, is to realize you're never going to get everything done. So what you want to do is you want to get to a point that sometimes you have to say good enough is good enough. And other times you have to say, nope, that's not good enough. We have to go deeper into that. So that would be my contribution to the standard operating procedures, the one thing at a time, the checklist. And I see that we have
Yeah.
Angela with us. I have to put my glasses on
Hello,
to get.
Angelo.
Great to
Thanks for
see you,
joining us.
Angela. Great to
Yeah.
see you.
And that brings up another point, Kathleen, in that many of us are looking for these bite-sized pieces of additional information that we can use and apply in our businesses. And that's what we are doing as far as trying to give to our audience. And in doing so, we want our audience to benefit from these bite-sized opportunities
Right.
for either confirmation, because you never know what anybody's going through in a day or a week. And this may just be the thing that someone needed to hear in order to regroup and have a more productive rest of their
Absolutely.
day or their week. And so, as we talk about productivity, one of the things that we encourage people to do, I encourage people to do, is to set up your daily calendar. And that has a lot to do with your personal flow, right? If I'm flowing in my creativity at the top of the day, then that's where I want to start. I don't want to have my calls at the beginning of the day,
Right.
because maybe that's where I'm checking up on social media and I know that I'm through this week, but today is my day to do a couple of posts and set them up in the schedule for next week. Or maybe it's about writing a post for the holidays for the month. And in the morning is when my energy is at a high creative stage. And so I'm able to do that. And in the midday, mid-afternoon, I'm more able to be vocal and focused in the conversations for meeting with clients and making those phone calls and soliciting information. Or in our case, we're looking for exhibitors and sponsors and affiliates for some of the projects that we
Right.
have going on. So it's knowing how your energy flows, and also major productivity tip, being in that high level of energy as you're progressing through the day and through the week.
I love what you say about, working at your highest point of energy, because we're 3 hours of difference in our time zones. I'm West Coast, you're East Coast time frame. And it's knowing how we can match our time zones so that we're both working at our highest productivity when we have our meetings. And another thing about meetings that I really would caution people with is LinkedIn this has been going on a lot with LinkedIn lately, where people reach out and they say, "Oh, I would love to talk with you about how we can collaborate or see if I might serve you." And it's like a veiled sales call. That's how it comes across to me. And honestly, I don't have time for that, because most people are not within the niche market that I'm in. So it really, I already know that it probably is not going to be a productive call. And I've actually been so forthright with my concern about having a call with somebody. I said, "I'll tell you what, it sounds interesting. And I need you to know, if this is a veiled sales conversation, I don't want to have it." And I've actually had people ghost me because of that. Other people say, "No, I'd really like to have a conversation because I've listened to your podcast show, or I read your profile," whatever it may be. But you're going to get a lot of people, strangers, that are reaching out to connect with you. And you really have to be discerning in who will you meet with and who are you going to share your time with. Because again, more and more every day, we're getting so stretched for that time in that breathing room that we have to create it for ourselves, because it's not going to create itself. So you have to know when to say no, when to say yes. And I've had occasion where I've said yes to people that something just was like, I need to have a conversation with this person. And maybe we became friends. Maybe we collaborated on a project. Maybe they were somebody that had a solution for one of our clients that we could refer them over to. But you don't have to say yes to everything, and you don't have to say no to everything on the flip side of that.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that I find that's very useful is, especially as it relates to increasing visibility while you're also being productive, and that is sharing other people's events, right? We're in the production business. And thank you, Angela, for sharing that as well. One of our clients, Linda Middlesworth, is having an event, and it's really, really great. Thank you, Angela,
Thank
for
you.
others to share those events. And it's something that I look at as our opportunity as well. We're sharing other people's events. That gives us visibility at the same time as it gives them added visibility. And that reciprocal energy is the high energy that I'm talking about as well. And it's not only a productivity tip to do something to do, It's also a visibility tip.
Right.
Because when you are making yourself visible in front of an opportunity that someone else has, people look at you as being gracious and generous and well-informed and helpful, because obviously you value the information that they're sharing and you want others to be a part of it as well. So yes, that's huge for me, being in that reciprocal energy and sharing. It's a huge productivity tip. Clock it in.
I'm going to be a naysayer on a little bit of that, in that I agree with the reciprocity, but I know that sometimes people think because they're on your mailing list that you should mail out for them. I've had that happen. It's really important to keep in mind that the more visible somebody is, the more they get approached to collaborate on opportunities. And there are occasions, like what you said, you definitely want to share events that other people are putting on, expecting nothing in return. Some people say, if I mail for you, will you mail for me? It doesn't always have to be like that. Sometimes I share things just because it's a great fit for my market and our market. But it's like, don't expect because you get on somebody's list. And this takes me back probably, I'm going to say 20 years ago, when email was just starting to be popular and we were building subscriber lists. And it took a lot more back then to build a list than it does now, because nobody really had a model for it. And maybe I'm going back 25 years. But anyway, there was a woman who was on my list and she wanted me to do a mail out for her. And it was not a match at all for my market. It was completely out of the box with my market. And I said, I really can't do that. And she kept hounding me. And she got upset. And she goes, why will you not do this? I'm on your list. And I said, what you need to understand is, just because you're on somebody's list doesn't mean that they need to mail out for you. I said, imagine this. If I have, let's say back then I had 1,000 people on my list and all 1,000 people expect me to mail out for them, it would cripple my list. It would literally, people would just be getting off left, right, and center. And we already deal with people unsubscribing. So don't assume because you've signed up for something of somebody's that they want to sign up for your thing. And this is also to do with productivity. Don't go and sign somebody up that didn't ask to be on your list. And this happens when somebody's on a podcast show. I get people signing me up for their list. They were on my podcast show. It's like, wait a minute, I didn't ask to be put on your list. So, I'm kind of today, I'm setting my boundaries, because I am feeling like it's real important for us to know that we have to have boundaries in order to be more productive.
We do. And it is called good business sense as well, because everything is not for everyone.
Right.
And honestly, if it doesn't align with you, it does not make sense to promote someone else's anything.
Right.
And, that's like I was saying, for us, it's us promoting client opportunities. It's us promoting those who are in alignment with us, our core values and our mission and market. And it is about those who, like you said, are sharing something that fits so well for our audience. And I think that, that's fundamentally how we look at, or have to look at, being in business. And, we work in this collaborative business model. So you always want to think about who it is that you can have this kind of a relationship with. And it still doesn't mean that everything that they're doing, you're going to share.
Right.
Or everything that you're doing, they're going to share. So it's about understanding what the collaborative opportunity means. It means understanding whether or not the specifics fit. And when they do, absolutely. But then you also, have to look at your team. How does your team play into it as well? And if you're spending team allocated time on something that is, I don't want to say not going to bring you that kind of return, because a lot of times we have to do, and we want to do things in our businesses that don't have an immediate return on that investment of time. But that's all part of the whole fundamentally, does it fit? Does it work?
Well, and I want to piggyback on to what Angela says here, that she said she learned this from me. So thank you very much for that. Leaving comments on people's social media posts.
Absolutely.
That's a great way to gain visibility, is that and leave a substantial comment. Don't just say, oh, great post.
Value.
Add value to it, because like she said, she's gotten invitations to be on a podcast show as a result of that. So thank you for that, Angela. But it really is about just serving at the highest level, doing what feels appropriate. And if it doesn't feel appropriate, being willing to say, no, this isn't a fit. I know for myself, I've had people who have wanted to post on my blog, and it has nothing to do with the vegan market. It has nothing to do with business. I don't even know what it has to do with. And I'm like, no, that's not a fit. So again, you have to know when to say no. Obviously, I've got a lot of no's that I've been saying lately, and it's like, okay. So, but it's really just organizing yourself in a way that you can be most productive, so that with the clients that you have, you can serve them. With the community that you're working with, you can serve them. And to really know what's aligned with who you are, what your values are, and what your direction is. So with that, VLynn, we're about over time. So what are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are, in your visibility strategy, think productivity as well. And think about priorities, think about collaboration opportunities, think about the things that will give you visibility, as well as provide the opportunity for you to be most effective and produce as much as possible.
All righty. Well, this has been delightful, VLynn, as always.
As always, Kathleen.
Yeah, absolutely. And to everybody who's been watching, next week, what we're going to talk about is something a little bit different. It's going to be how to work with your clients in a way that you're most productive and they're most productive. And also knowing when is the right time to meet with clients and when is it your family time. I think that's really important, because the more we create balance, the more balanced we are in the way that we serve our market. Have a great day. This is Kathleen Gage with Vegan Visibility Productions and
VLynnHawkins, and we will see you next week.
All righty. Thank you.